Hello, this is Pat Trueman, and I am the director of the War on Illegal Pornography and the founder of pornographyharms.com. We're here today with Dr. Jill Manning. And Dr. Jill Manning is an author, and she is a licensed marriage and family therapist in Colorado. She's a former social science fellow at the Heritage Foundation here in Washington, D.C. Dr. Manning, welcome to our program.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Good to have you. Dr. Manning, you have written extensively on the harm from pornography. You've got two papers on this that I'm aware of. One is on the impact of pornography on women, and the second is the impact of pornography on marriage and family. Let's talk today about the impact on women. When we're talking about the impact of pornography on women, are you talking about consumers of pornography, women being consumers?
Well, I think it's important to acknowledge that there's many different age groups and types of women that are impacted by pornography negatively. For instance, we have young people, children and adolescents who are in a very highly sexualized context that they're growing up in, and they're impacted by it very differently than an adult because of their developmental stage.
Well, let's stop you right there because let's start by talking about those kids. Kids today are getting pornography. Now let's talk about the girls. They're, of course, not just seeing pornography, but they're seeing television shows that glorify sex with unmarried girls. They're portrayed in a certain way that they're supposed to act, dress, etc., conform to this sexualized society. Okay, what's the effect on those girls from that culture that they're living in, but also from viewing pornography at an early age?
Well, I think from media generally, young women, sadly, are receiving a very limited and toxic script about who they are, what their potential is as women, and what's most important about who they are. There's a prime importance placed on their sexuality, and so it's no surprise that we see young women acting out and using sexuality more and more to garner attention, to seek fame. It's troubling to me that we see these young Hollywood celebrities who really their biggest claim to fame has been sexual behavior, sex tapes, and the sexualization of their music, their bodies, their what have you. So I think, first of all, it just provides a script that really limits what it means to be sexual, what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a human being. And I really encourage young people that I work with and speak with that we need to broaden that and make sure that we are helping young people develop in healthy ways and acquiring the best information possible so that they have the best chances in the future of having healthy, long-lasting relationships, including sexual relationships. So I just really have concerns of how limiting and toxic. It's not just limiting, it has a negative effect.
All right, what is that negative effect? Let's say a girl is in that culture of today and sees the Hollywood depiction of what she's supposed to be. She's a sex object, and men have their way and direct their lives. They get into pornography because the kids are talking about it. Maybe you've treated someone like this. What's the effect on a child?
Well, that's a lengthy discussion, but just some highlights that I think are worthy of taking note. One, we know from research, from social science studies, that young people that are exposed to pornography and seek that material out, that they have a higher risk of having an increased number of life sexual partners over the lifespan, which also increases their risk of STDs, which we see on the rise in North America with young women in particular. Just last year, there were stats that came out saying 1 in 4 had at least one STD. Pornography plays a role in that because young people act out things that they see, things that they're curious about. And when you have highly explicit images that leave nothing to the imagination, young people are going to act those things out. They're going to try and experiment. And so one of the risks of that is we see with teenagers especially, teens that have been exposed to pornography have higher rates of anal and oral sex, which creates other health issues and risks for them. We also see young people putting less importance on marriage and monogamy, having less desire to have a family and raise a family one day. My own experience as a clinician is young people that have been exposed to pornography really get very distorted views about their own bodies and expectations about relationships and men and women. I have also seen them become more prone to depression because it doesn't feel good to use another human being or watch another human being being degraded or abused. You don't feel good about yourself.
And I would think you also don't feel good about yourself if you're not the model of perfection that they desire in porn movies. You know, where every girl is different. What's that effect?
Well, it distorts a young person's view of the body, their own and others. Male and female. My husband's a family physician, and he sees this with young people coming in where they'll think there's something wrong with genitalia or a part of their body. And my husband's now become accustomed to asking, are they involved in pornography in some way? And most often the answer is yes. Now, with that said, I think developmentally insecurities and questions about one's body are totally normal and in fact healthy. But when you have young people inundated with mutated and surgically altered bodies, it really does skew because they don't have the developmental discernment and risk attenuation to really determine what's real, what's not. Is this really what sexual beings are like or not? Or there's just a lot of confusion. So I find young people get very confused by what's real, what's expected of me, what does a relationship entail?
It almost seems they don't have a chance to grow up today because they've got all these images rushing at them, all these demands. And I hear what's going on with the boys. They're demanding certain conduct. They're watching pornography, expecting the girls to see it with them or pass it around. And they're emailing material to their friends or texting it. That's got to have a terrible effect growing up. Now, the boys don't have to conform that way. It's the girls. Isn't that right? It's really one-sided.
I would
or
agree
am I
with
wrong?
that. Well, I think there's a lot of things here that are one-sided. I don't think that's just with pornography, but certainly I think pornography has that impact where, but I think for the young men too, they have a false sense of expectation of themselves and their role. And the male scripts in pornography I find are very dehumanizing and emasculating. So I think it's unfair for both. It just so happens, though, that the majority of characters in pornographic films happen to be female. They really are the staple in pornography. So, yes, I think it skews those scripts. But I also see young women becoming more and more aggressive and promiscuous, and also players themselves in the pornographic world, with sexting and taking pictures of themselves and forwarding those on. And I think it's systemic. They're trying to now compete for male attention, and that male attention has been pornified and influenced by pornography and the expectations and the rules of that whole social dance. So I really think it influences both. I really do.
We're running out of time on here. I want to talk again, the next segment, about the impact on women. But to wrap this up about the impact on the young, it seems like in today's society, it's hard to get a break. If you're not conforming, you're on the outs. If you are conforming, you've got lifelong, perhaps, harm that's being done. Is that correct?
Yes, I would agree with that. And, Patrick, one thing that is troubling to me with young people is just how pornography is hijacking some of the best parts of being a kid. And some of the most healthy and natural aspects of life are being distorted and twisted by an industry and corporate agendas. And so I really encourage families and young people, when I've worked with them, to do their very best to get accurate, truthful information about healthy sexuality and also all of the many other wonderful parts of life other than sexuality. Pornography just skews and places such a distorted emphasis on the physical aspect of sexuality, but also the physical aspects of life. And so I really try to encourage young people to know, hey, there's so much more out there than just this, and so much about you other than your sexuality. And so, you know, pornography has become, we know, the primary sexual educator of our young in this country. That is criminal. And we as families and parents and leaders and teachers need to step up and help these young people so that they're not in a vacuum, that they're getting access to accurate information. And that takes us as adults stepping up to the plate and providing that for them and working with them. And
Jill, we're out of time. Our guest today is Dr. Jill Manning of Colorado. She is a marriage and family therapist, and she's written on the topic of the effect of pornography on women and girls. You can find that at pornharms.com under Dr. Jill Manning's name. Jill, thank you for being with us.
my pleasure. Thank you.